In this video, we are going to take a look at the first chapter out of test-driven development by example, and this is going to be chapter 1 on multi-currency money. So let's set up the stage here and take a look at this report. We have a stock, a number of shares, price, and total. And you can see here that everything is in the same currency, so it's really not that hard to deal with because it's just simple math. It's shares times price gives us a total, and then we can simply sum the total. We don't have to worry about different currencies. But that picture changes quite a bit if we have multi-currencies involved. And here I'm taking two different stock prices, but one is in dollars, the other's in francs. And we're going to say that we have an exchange rate of 1.5 from francs to dollars. And the math works out a little bit different because now we have to go through and convert things. In this example, we are going to have to do a couple different operations. Obviously, the totals are the same, but when we go to add these together, we have to do a currency conversion based on the exchange rate. So the report gives us basically our technical requirements for this, and we get two primary requirements to be able to calculate this report. First, we need to be able to add up two amounts from two different currencies and convert the result given a set of exchange rates. And that's how we can do the math there, is being able to count for those exchange rates. Another thing that comes out of this, we need to be able to multiply the amount by a number of shares, and receive an amount back. So these are two primary criteria that we are going to be working with our technical requirements as we go in and implement the software. Now what we're going to do is set up a to-do list, and I'm going to call this our test-driven development to-do list. And we will keep a running list. I'll keep it on the slides here as we go through each lesson. And I want to point out normal text is saying that's on the list. We've identified it, but it has not been worked on. Bold is what we are going to be working on. And then strike through is stuff that we've completed. Now let's take a look at our list for right now. We want to be able to add up $5 to plus 10 francs and get $10 with an exchange rate of 2 to 1. And then we also want to be able to multiply $5 by 2 and get a result of $10. And then we want to make amount private. Have a private field for amount. And then we want to concern about dollar side effects, and this is going to be things that are mutable and things like that. So we're going to look at that. And then money rounding, that's another thing. But for right now, you can see that I've put in bold the 5 times 2 equals 10. And that's exactly what we're going to look at. And I am going to toggle over to IntelliJ right now and start writing that test. Okay, back in the IDE now. And what I want to do is write up a test. And I'm going to need to create a test class. So let's come in, and I'm going to create a new Java class. And for now, I am just going to call that money test. And again, I did set up JUnit in here. This is a project that we looked at in the previous example, or in the previous module of the course, I should say. And let's go ahead and create a test method. So I'm going to set up that test method, and let's call that test multiplication. And in this test, what we want to do is create a dollar, and we'll call that 5 equals new dollar. And then we want to say, not fine, 5. And we can see here we got a lot of things that are unhappy. One thing that I can fix is I can come in and say import that static method, and we are going to come in and use the assert equals. So we did one import there, and now we can see that we have a number of things wrong. Now, if I come in and try to run this, I'm just going to say run that. We're going to see that things are going to blow up quite a bit because there's a number of things that are wrong with it. You can see that it can't find the class, so we don't even have the class implemented at this point in time. So a number of things that we need to do to get this cooking. And in test-driven development, we want to try to get that going as much as possible. So you can see that Java's unhappy. Clearly our test is unhappy because it can't even compile. So the first thing that we want to do is get this compiling. So let's come back over here. I'm going to create a Java class called $. And let me do a split screen on this. Split that, rearrange this a little bit so we still have the compile errors. Close that. So just to orient you, I now have my test at the top and the $. Class down at the bottom. So now we can see that this is actually happy, so to speak. So we have the new $. So the class is being found, but it's complaining because there's no constructor there. So let's go ahead and add that. And that's going to take in an int amount. So you can see that clears up that error. And now our class also needs to have a times method. And now we can see that that's happy. And the last error is that it's looking for an amount field. So let's come in and also do an int. So a number of things that are still wrong with this. For simplicity, we are using an integer, a primitive, not the most ideal thing to be using for currency for sure, but for the expediency of the test that we are doing here, we are going to kind of roll with that. We're kind of more focused on actually doing test-driven development as we are here. But you can see now I do have my implementation, and you can see I have a misspelling there. So come in, rename to fat finger multiplication. And we don't want test. Come on, IntelliJ. So now let's go ahead and run the test. And we can see that it's going to run, but we're probably going to get some errors in it. But now effectively what we did is we fixed it so it compiled. So very, very low level that it compiled. So now what we can do is actually start whittling down the compile errors. And we can see here the first line, we are passing in the amount of 5, and we are not updating that. So now we can come in and say equals the amount being passed in. So that's definitely going to help our test, but we're definitely still going to be failing there. Now let's go ahead and run our test. I'm just going to run things along, and that's one of the things that we want. So now we're saying that we are expected 10, but actual 5. So what we can do is in this, we can say amount equals. So now we're going to go ahead. I'm actually hard coding that in, and we can see that that is got our test passing. So even though we still have a lot of things that are wrong here that we want to be correcting, we now have a passing test. And this is where we can start to refactor our test and make things, so to speak, more better. So let's take a couple things that we can do here. First off, we can take this and get rid of that and do a multiplier. And we can run our test, make sure that's still good. Now we got amount repeated. And if we apply a little Java foo, what we can do is this and say times equals. Take a little more control of the language there. See that this is still working. Okay, I'm jumping back over to our to-do list. And you can see that second to-do there, I've taken off the list because we now have written a test and we refactored the code, even though it's not perfect. So if you look back, we did not make the amount private. We still have that on our to-do list. So we're going to stop there and then take a look at what we actually did in this lesson. So we went through and we looked at the situation. We made a list of the tests that we needed. So we created our to-do list. And then we told a story about how we wanted to view one operation. That was that initial test that we came up with. So remember, we just went in, we coded that. We said we want to have a dollar object, and then we put the behavior of that object in there into the test as if it was a concrete class. And clearly our IDE was not happy about that. IntelliJ was unhappy. We tried the Java compiler. That was very happy. And for the moment right now, we are not getting into JUnit. We just are using it as convenient. You can see that I'm running it from within the IDE to execute the test. And first thing is we went in and made the test compile and with stubs. And that effectively is exactly what we did is we created a stub of that dollar class. So we didn't write any code behind it. We basically got it to compile. And then we made the test run. And you can see I went in and hard coded a bunch of stuff and just made really, really ugly code. But we got the test to run and got it into the green. So we went from red to green on our test, which is exactly what we want. And then we went through and started refactoring that code, replacing the constants that I used with variables and actually started utilizing the variables and cleaned things up. And then we cleaned things up there and got things working. So that was the approach of test-driven development, where I went through this very, very detailed so you can see how we could create that test without a class existing, describe the behaviors of that class that we wanted to do. And then we went in, implemented that at a stub level, and then we came back and started refactoring it. We refactored it, made the code better and better and better. And now we have a class called $, and we have complete test coverage over that, which is exactly where we want.